Each person will be allowed 2 minutes. And Suzanne, are you comfortable timing? Oh,
I can do that.
I do want to introduce who's here, and then, but we're not officially in the meeting until after public comment. But for our board members, we are all here. We have Cynthia Swopis, Suzanne Smith, Janet Grant, and myself, Joanne Levin. Kelly, could you introduce staff? Do we have any staff here?
Myself, Kelly Constantine, Department Assistant, and Scott Hoiberg, our Executive Assistant.
Okay, I thought Amy was coming. I don't see her.
Amy is not in yet.
Okay. Okay. And we have a guest of Cheryl Sabara. Okay, so first we will have a public comment session. The format for this is that each person will get 2 minutes to speak. This is not, unfortunately, a dialogue, but we're very interested in what you have to say, and we'll listen very carefully, but we are not in a position to have a dialogue. And then after we hear public comment, then we'll open the meeting. And so if, because of the way the Zoom is set up, I can't see your faces, and that's intentional, that the way the Zoom is set up. But if you would like to participate in public comment, if you go down to the menu on the bottom under React, it has a little heart, you will find a hand, or you can make any reaction that hopefully I would see. So if anyone is here who would like to speak at public comment, go ahead, there you go, there's one. Put up your electronic hand, please. Is there anyone else? I see MISSM. Is there anyone else here for public comment? I see Andrea. Anyone else? Dylan and Jen and Misty Brown. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Okay, thumbs up.
How do I do this?
Anthony, if you're trying to get on the public comment, you go under the reaction button and then raise your hand. So we'll start down at the bottom in the menu.
Oh no, am I first?
I see no menu.
Kelly, everyone else is supposed to be muted until it's time for them to talk.
I am trying to figure that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Laura. I'm raising my hand, but I can see where it says raise hand, but it's not showing a raised hand on mine. So I'm just
okay.
You call me when you're ready. Sorry,
okay.
I didn't want to interrupt. I'll remute me. Thank you.
I also can't select the hands up. I'm Jessica for comment.
Okay, found it.
Okay. Okay, great. So MISSM, can you unmute yourself, please?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you state, could each person please state their name, where they, town where they live, and what their relationship?
My name is Amanda Rayner, and I live in Bedford, New Hampshire, but I am also in Winthrop, Massachusetts, about 95% of my time. I'm speaking because I would like to urge you to please do not ban Kratom. Kratom has, in the last 8 years, I just celebrated 8 years on the 5th of May. I have utilized Kratom after being on pain medication since the age of 9 years old. I am almost 47, so that is more than half of my life. In the last 8 years that I have been on Kratom, I have not had to consume over 50,000 pharmaceutical pills. I've been under a doctor's care. I have fantastic blood work. I have amazing scans on my organs. And I just had my physical 2 weeks ago Friday, and my doctor basically told me I have reversed the damage that pharmaceuticals have done to my body since the age of 9 for over 30 years. I did lose my mother to the hands of the pain clinic as well. They gave her medication for 8 months. She took less than what she prescribed, and it killed her. So that's what I sought out for, a healthier alternative to treating my chronic pain, as I live with 10 out of 20 of the most painful conditions to live with, including trigeminal neuralgia, which is also known as the suicide disease. So I am just asking you to please allow me and allow everyone else here, whether they use it for sobriety, they use it to manage their day-to-day life. If I didn't have Kratom, I'd be stuck back in bed every day. I wouldn't have a life. I wouldn't be able to do the simple things like shower or spend time with my son at a concert or just walk outside and enjoy the sunshine. So I really urge you to please look at the science. There is a ton of it. I will email it to you as well. Lots of doctors that have spent tons of hours researching it. So I appreciate the time, and I really hope that you guys look in favor of keeping Kratom legal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrea, could you unmute yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Andrea Heikert. I am from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I strongly ask you to please do not ban Kratom. I have a story of both my brother and sister who in 2016, May of 2016, my brother almost died due to fentanyl toxicity. A month later, my sister nearly died from carfentanil. Both of them had no idea that this was given to them. Thankfully, they both survived, although my sister was in ICU for 2 weeks on a ventilator. We had no idea if she would make it. I myself utilize Kratom and have for 10 years now, a little bit over as of this month. And I have a plethora of health conditions, including multiple that carry a lot of chronic pain. And I cannot utilize things such as NSAIDs. And with the addiction that's run in my family, I will not ever get on opiate medications or anything of that nature. I am speaking because I've seen my brother live 3.5 years of his life sober due to Kratom and got those years back that I never thought I would. And my sister has also been clean since she had that incident with the carfentanil that she almost did not survive. And she has been sober ever since. It is not something that causes me to have any issues. My lab results have all been perfect. I am under close watch with the care team due to all of my conditions. And there's nothing that I can say negative about it other than it's given me my life back. I'm a mother to 2 beautiful children. I'm able to function. I'm able to be here today because of Kratom. And it's something that I know so many lives that it has saved. I ask you
Thank you
once
so
again.
much. Thank you. Dylan, can you unmute yourself? Oh, I can do that. Yep.
Okay, am I unmuted?
You are. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Dylan Smith. I am a New England resident, a father, and an advocate for natural health and medicine. My wife grew up in Massachusetts, and we spend time here often and care about the state and the people that live in it. Before discovering whole leaf kratom powder, I dealt with a host of debilitating health issues. In 2018, I was diagnosed with neuroborreliosis, an infection of the brain and nervous system from the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. After suffering from a host of debilitating issues for over 10 years that completely upended my life. Before kratom and other natural herbs came into my life, my daily reality was crippling pain, fatigue, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and digestive distress. My condition became so severe that in 2018, I was hospitalized for over a month and shortly after finally received a diagnosis. My health had declined to the point that I was put on disability for several years, unable to support myself. And while most people never return to work after going on disability, I recently have, in largest part due to Kratom's role in managing my symptoms. This has allowed me to contribute to our family and community in ways that would have otherwise not been possible. In 2016, I entered recovery from alcohol and prescription pills and began detoxing off several pharmaceuticals, including benzodiazepines like Xanax and Klonopin, and stimulants like Adderall and Ritalin. I was legally prescribed these to manage my symptoms. I'm extremely familiar with the concept of sobriety and what it means to be sober versus not. With a background in addiction, I'm acutely aware of when something plays a medicinal role in my life and when something is destructive. No other substance has ever been more medicinal and helpful in my 20 years of treatment as Kratom Leaf has been. It absolutely supports my recovery, just like so many others across the country, and has a massively positive impact on my mental health and discomfort levels without getting me intoxicated or inebriated. It is because of Kratom's ability to take the place of high-profit pharmaceuticals and be used as an exit substance that is so heavily demonized. It is actually because of how beneficial it is, so beneficial that it cuts into the profits of the pharmaceutical companies who heavily lobby and influence our government, that we see calls for bans across the country. This is a classic case of profits over people, just like we saw with cannabis over the past 10 years. I'm almost done. I'll just finish this one paragraph. Massachusetts has already become a leader in the alternative and plant medicine space, allowing their people to choose what treatments or medicines work best for them, despite pushback from big pharma. Why now would we go in the opposite direction? It is the same people who created. All right, thank you. I just had two more sentences.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Misty, can you unmute yourself?
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
I testified here at the last hearing that you guys had. So I just wanted to give y'all a quick rundown of my testimony. I once was a victim of the overprescribing opioid epidemic. I have degenerative disc disease. I went to pain management, and back then, pain pills were handed out like candy. You could go in and just say that your back hurt or you pulled a muscle and bam, you got 120 pills. So I found Kratom. I accidentally found Kratom in June of 2019. And ever since then, I have been an almost 6-year consumer. I do not take it every day. It's not highly addictive like the media wants to portray it to be. I don't take it 1 to 4 days every week. You know, I was an active addict for 11 years. Now I'm a recovered addict for almost 6 years. I am a consumer advocate and activist from Colorado. So I like to say that I'm speaking on behalf of the Massachusetts residents that have no idea that you guys are even talking about Kratom, you know? So we want regulations. Put an age limit on it. Put it behind the counter. Like out here in Colorado, I have to show my ID to get it. It's put behind the counter in a glass case so no kids or teens can get it. First of all, they're not even supposed to be in the smoke shops anyway, you know? So put regulations on it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you so much. Glenn, you can unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I was a police officer for 17 years, part of it in Northampton, Pennsylvania. And I moved to Florida. And I lived in Fort Lauderdale. I injured my back and it permanently reherniated. I had to take a short retirement until I'm disabled. I was taking pain pills for my back. I ended up being addicted to them. In fact, this was after I retired. I never once took a narcotic in my life. In other words, you can't be a police officer because you get the polygraph test. So I never took a narcotic in my life. And what happened was with pain medicine, I took too much of it constantly and I overdosed. The next day, I promised myself I'm not going to do that again. For some reason, I heard about Kratom. And I looked into it, and God, it changed me. I don't drink. I haven't had a drink in 8 years. The only time I take pain pills is when I'm prescribed. Matter of fact, I just had hip surgery yesterday. I had my hip replaced yesterday. I'm home now. A doctor gave me like 30 Percocets. They're sitting. I haven't even used them. I don't need that. I do Kratom and I deal with it that way best I can. You know, Kratom is nothing like, it's nearly not as strong as an opioid or addicting as an opioid, but I'm dealing with Kratom. I had a hernia surgery in July.
That's time.
And
You can
my
finish
pain
your sentence.
my pain management doctor took me off Tramadol and told me to take Kratom. So I'm taking Kratom instead of Tramadol. And that's getting me
Thank you
through.
so much. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anthony, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm a 28-year-old small business owner from Northern California, but I know a good number of people in Massachusetts who need me and appreciate me to talk about this. I was suffering from severe depression from the age of 15 till now. And when I was 17, I started drinking heavily, and I didn't stop until I was about 22 in 2019. I got a good job. I had stopped drinking, but I became so depressed again that I was going to end my life. And my friend told me, hey, you should try Kratom. It's better than killing yourself. And I didn't really want to. I was like, oh, I heard it has bad side effects. But I went for it, and it completely transformed my life. All of a sudden, I was extremely effective in my work environment, specifically navigating office politics. It allowed me to tranquilize my mind and deal with each situation in a mindful way. And in addition to that, my dad was an addict my whole life, Xanax and heroin, and I was able to help him get off of his drugs with the use of Kratom, with careful tapering. And I was able to actually wean off Kratom myself without the need for any kind of, rehab or anything like that. And and I was a fairly heavy user. I stopped for 5 months and realized that, hey, my life really sucks. And it objectively, I'm very unhappy. And to tell you the whole truth, if I didn't have Kratom to help me, and I also was able to start my own business through the help of Kratom. Without it, it wouldn't exist. And without Kratom to help me get through the daily grind and to help many working people around the country get through the daily grind, you'd be seeing a lot of suicides on your hands, because I would say without it, I wouldn't have the will to live. And there are many people struggling with day-to-day life and how miserable it is with the economy and how there's very little to live for. And this something feel good is one of the only things that make it worth the trouble. That's all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Laura, can you unmute?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you. My name is Laura Romney, and I'm actually a Kratom educator and advocate from Utah, and I really appreciate you letting me speak to you tonight. I've sent you some information in the past. I know it was great to hear all these testimonies tonight, but the biggest thing I wanted to do to talk to you tonight is about 7-hydroxymetrogyamine or 7-OH products. These, it's super critical that this is what you understand. Obviously, you know the benefits of Kratom, but there are bad players in the market. These are the 7-OH products. I want to make it very, very clear that these are not Kratom products. These are full synthetics. They're actually used, they're manufactured with pool shock, and they create all sorts of alkaloids that they don't even know what, can identify all of them. But these products are legal, and without a proper regulation in place, anyone can walk in and get these. They're extremely, very, very potent. They're actually 15 to 30 times more potent than morphine. And in pure plant kratom, the 7-OH levels are always less than 1%, which is extremely small. In fact, let me give you an example. In pure leaf kratom, a typical dose is about 3 grams. There's approximately 1.2 milligrams of 7-OH in that kratom in 3 grams. But in a 7-OH product, one pill contains 20 to 40 milligrams. That means one pill is 25 times stronger than one dose of kratom. So these and synthetic 7-OH products are full opiate agonists, whereas normal kratom is partial. So you do have the respiratory depression that can happen with 7-OH. But I want to tell you a quick story today that happened. I was helping a patient today. She has been cut cold turkey off of 4 opioids per day. And she came to me. She went into a smoke shop to get some kratom, and the store owner, she asked for kratom. He handed her a 7-OH product and said, "This is what you want."
Time.
So again, in closing, she was, instead of being able to get pure kratom, she was handed without having anything and had that 7-OH product, which she had a terrible reaction to. Today, and I literally 2 secs. Today, she went to the smoke shop again, purchased plain powder, took 1/4 of a teaspoon, and she said, "I feel like a new person. All of my withdrawals are gone away, and I'm getting pain relief." So please
Thank
don't
you.
ban kratom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jessica. Where is Jessica? Oh, there you are. Hold on. Can you unmute Jessica?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Hi. Hi, I'm Jessica. I'm from Amesbury, Massachusetts. I am a lifetime resident of Newburyport, Mass. I am a recovering opioid user. I've been in recovery since 2017. Along the lines of my addiction, I have killed myself in overdose and in means of recovery. I've tried Vivitrol, I've tried Suboxone, I've been in a cycle of relapse and feel spiritually empty. Well, it wasn't until about 2019 I was introduced to the kratom substance. And much like a lot of people said, it just like unveiled this. I felt like I was going through the mundane, doing the other recovery treatment options before me, and I wasn't living. I had an 18-month-old at home, and I was incarcerated, and I was at below rock bottom and just felt like I was muddling through life. Something about it I can't explain. It just gives me the ability to get up and just want to live and not just survive. And it helps me along the spiritual journey. And I do use it under care with a maintenance team as well. I have therapists and doctors. And my health has never been better. I haven't touched an opioid since 2017. So the regulation of this would be huge, much like the marijuana. It can be done, and it can be done safely. And it can save a lot of people. And I
Thank
speak
you.
for many. I lost half my generation to other substance. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Is there anyone else here who would like to speak at public comment? You can raise your electronic hand by going into the React section. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in public comment? I don't see anyone else.
Can I unmute?
Dylan, you already spoke, right? Is there anyone who has not yet spoken who would like to speak at public comment? I see Jen. Jen, can you unmute? Jen, can you unmute?
Hi. Sorry, I had raised my hand literally first, so I was surprised when you didn't see my hand.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I spoke the last one. I'm a mother, a small business owner, a holistic health mentor, and a health freedom advocate. I was born and raised in Massachusetts, and I'm super excited at the possibility of regulation in your community. This isn't just about personal stories. I know I shared mine last time, and I know a ton of people just did. But this is really about science, compassion, and common sense. World-renowned experts like Dr. Marilyn Hustis, Dr. Christopher McCurdy, Dr. Jack Henningfield have testified about kratom's therapeutic potential. I'm almost certain that I emailed you their video testimonies along with several other doctors. If I haven't, I will be sure to do that this afternoon. These are respected researchers in toxicology, pharmacology, addiction medication. Their findings show that kratom, as you have heard, can offer so much relief to the population and to your community. Chronic pain, anxiety, opioid withdrawal has a much lower risk profile. The World Health Organization, in its comprehensive report, concluded that there is no evidence that kratom causes widespread harm or death when used responsibly. In fact, on page 39 of the report, it clearly states that kratom was not a causal factor in any associated deaths. Of course, regulation makes sense. As of today, 17 states have passed the KCPA. And in Massachusetts, you have the opportunity to regulate in your community without the state. And there is a KCPA going in front of the Massachusetts State Capitol, which I was just there speaking at a hearing, I think it was last week. I am happy to answer any questions or participate in an educational meeting where we can have a back and forth, when we can have more of kind of this dialogue that makes sense when you're truly putting your people first and investigating what is best for your people and not hearsay. So I would love if your board would be open to that. I don't work for the AKA, but I've worked with them to provide these educational with Laura. We've done this with several, and we would love to do that with you as well.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in public comment? If you'd like to speak in public comment, please go down to the React button and raise your hand. Thank you, everyone who spoke. We really appreciate your testimony. Now we will move on to our Public Health Board of Health meeting. Would someone like to make a motion?
Move to open the meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Cynthia?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Joanne? Yes. Okay, Board of Health meeting is now officially open. Okay. Great. So Cheryl Sabara, thank you so much for coming. Let me just find 1 second. Cheryl is the Executive Director and Senior Staff Attorney at the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards, and she is here to help us discuss regulatory approaches to synthetic THC. So I hope you all got the PowerPoint that Cheryl has made in the past. And I'll say for myself, it's now clear as mud what we should be doing. So Cheryl, I don't know if you want to summarize. I found that very confusing. So
Sure.
I don't know if you can help clarify.
I can try. It is confusing. And I testified actually this summer before the legislature, the Joint Committee on Agriculture and Public Health, on just what the challenge is for municipalities right now. And the challenge really comes from the federal definition of hemp. And, you know, hemp, commercial hemp is one thing, but the way the hemp is defined in the Farm Act, it states that the act itself states that hemp is the plant cannabis and all of its derivatives, extracts, cannabinoids, isomers, et cetera, whether growing or not, with a delta 9 concentration of not more than 0.3%. So the plain meaning of that federal definition is that anything that has a delta 9 concentration of not more than 0.3% is by definition hemp. So after the Farm Act was passed in 2018, we started seeing a lot of products that were labeled as Delta 8 or Delta 10, and other names for these products. But what we saw mostly after 2018 were Delta 8 and Delta 10 products. And what they are, there are more than 100 cannabinoids produced in a cannabis plant. So they are actually isomers of Delta 9. And I'm sure there are members on the board who can explain this much more clearly than I can. I went to law school because I couldn't do math or chemistry or anything along those lines. So I'm sure you folks understand this much better than I do. But an isomer, for those other people that just went to law school and didn't go to medical school, they're the same atoms, but they're arranged differently. And they are found naturally in the cannabis plant, however, in very, very minuscule amounts. So when I was doing research to try to figure all of this stuff out, because I was being asked by lots of boards of health and by tobacco control programs, what do we do? Because the tobacco control inspectors were going into stores doing their normal compliance checks, and they were finding all of these Delta 8, Delta 10, and Delta 28, and so forth, products in the store. So one scientist, whose name escapes me right now, basically said to produce Delta 8 naturally, with the necessary isolation and purification that you would have to do, you would need to process about 122,000 pounds of hemp to produce 1 kilo, which is 2.2 pounds of Delta 8 naturally. And the cost would be about $22 million in order to do that. So you will see on these packages, it says naturally occurring Delta 8. And what he stated was that calling commercial Delta 8 THC a hemp derived or a natural product is the same as calling codeine a poppy derived natural herbal supplement. And the fact remains, though, that we are seeing these products with these other deltas in candy, cookies, chips, gummies, vapes, dabs, spray, infused beverages. So we're seeing a lot now of hemp-derived intoxicating products, which are what the concern is. And my PowerPoint had I've got a picture of Doritos, that nacho cheese Doritos that have Delta 8 in them, Skittles, and lots of beverages. And also they're in a lot of vaping products, a lot of flavored vaping products. Now, if they're in flavored vaping products, the tobacco sales law actually covers those, because our law defines electronic cigarettes and vaping products as any vaping product regardless of nicotine content. So all flavored vaping products are covered under the Mass law, and those can be fined on by tobacco control programs or by health inspectors. The real challenge, and the Cannabis Control Commission testified at this joint hearing that was held last June, is they have independent labs that the Cannabis Control Commission works with. And they tried to test these products, and one of the names of them, is called Trainwreck. And it has 1,000 milligrams of Delta 8 in it. And they basically said that when they tested these synthetic isomer products, they found acetic acid in between 15 to 30 unknown contaminants. The director of the CCC basically said that these are Frankenstein-like chemical components. And there's no certification for any of the laboratories that are creating these products. And they have very, very high potency levels. So while Delta 8 and Delta 10 are less intoxicating in the levels that Delta 9 would be in, they have much higher amounts. So for instance, synthetic gummies are labeled as having 50 milligrams of synthetic THC per serving, compared with the legal cannabis product, which has a maximum required amount of THC of 10 milligrams. So we have products now that are on the market that are widely available. There are not even any age restrictions on these products, and the products are found in shelf-stable food. So they're found in gummies, chips, you think Coke and Twinkies, and I'm aging myself by using those as the descriptions, but they're found in shelf-stable foods, which don't, pursuant to Massachusetts law, require a food service permit. Now, Northampton might have a food service permit requirement for these if you have a separate regulation. I'm just not sure whether you require a food service permit for shelf-stable food. It's not a state requirement, but it might be a local requirement. So adverse health effects, again, these are relatively new. We know they're made in labs that are not certified. Chemists don't know what these contaminants are. And the FDA has reported hallucinations, vomiting, tremors, the severe toxicity of the problems, especially the fact that these are targeted Skittles, Dorito. I mean, they're targeted to youth in many, many cases. There's been a lot of accidental exposure, and most of that accidental exposure has involved youth. And we've had, let's see, when I put this together, there were over 2,300 calls to poison control for Delta 8 exposure in 12 months. One of the products that I put in the PowerPoint was Nerdy Bears. And they come right out and say these are Farm Bill compliant products. They have 420 milligrams of Delta 8 THC. And it says right on the advertisement that's online that Nerdy Bears are extremely potent. Okay, so how did we get to this proliferation of these products? And again, we got to it because of the federal definition of hemp. So what the manufacturers are saying is that they have a Delta 9 concentration of not more than 3%. So therefore, they are legal hemp-derived products. And there is a case that came out of the Ninth Circuit, which is in California, which is usually considered a very liberal-leaning circuit. But they basically said in the case that regardless of the wisdom of legalizing Delta 8 THC products, this court will not substitute its own policy judgment for that of Congress. If the defendant is correct and Congress inadvertently created a loophole legalizing these products, then it is for Congress to fix its mistake. Now, the Ninth Circuit is not controlling for us in Massachusetts, but the industry is claiming that they are basically just walking through a legal loophole here, that Congress needs to fix it if that's not what Congress intended, and Congress did not intend to open up the door for synthetic products, but they did. Or at least the argument is that they did. We would argue that no, they did not, because if you look at the Federal Controlled Substance Act and the state-specific Massachusetts Controlled Substance Act, both of them say all synthetically derived THC remains a Schedule I controlled substance, regardless of Delta 9 THC content. So Mass has incorporated the Federal Controlled Substance Act, and Massachusetts claims also in Chapter 94C, because we incorporated that same federal scheduling, that these products are illegal because they are Schedule I controlled substances. Okay. Now, in addition to that, so we claim that they are illegal. Okay. The challenge with that is who does the enforcing? If these are actually Schedule I illegal drugs, then it would be the police that would do the enforcing, because there would be a violation of the Controlled Substance Act. We have not had that kind of cooperation from the police. And I'm not blaming the police. I'm just saying that it hasn't worked out the way that it might have. But there's another angle here. And this is the angle that, and the tact that many municipalities are taking, because, and this is where it gets very confusing too. And I know a lot of you were at the certificate program when we talked about this. THC Delta 9 edible products that you can consume, are not defined as food. So you can sell, if you're a licensed marijuana establishment, you can sell edible brownies, edible beverages, drinkable, well, they're considered food. So just say you can sell those products that are infused with Delta 9 THC. However, Delta 8, Delta 10, CBD, those are food still pursuant to the food code. And those are not approved food additives. So right now in Massachusetts, you cannot sell any product that is on the market and is being sold as a Dorito or a Skittle or a beverages that has Delta 8 or Delta 10 in them are adulterated. So they violate the food code in Massachusetts. And we, in about a year ago, a little more than a year, a little less than a year ago, we had guidance that came out of the Department of Public Health and the Department of Agricultural Resources stating this, stating that hemp-derived CBD and THC is not allowed in food and beverages sold in Massachusetts if it's not the Cannabis Control Commission infused THC product, and any other product is adulterated and cannot be sold. And we have that in writing. And that has been given to a lot of retail stores. We also, the ABCC, the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission, also issued a statement saying that, because what else was happening is that we were seeing the Delta 9 THC beverages started showing up in liquor stores. And ABCC came out with another guidance document indicating that they could only be sold in marijuana establishments. So the challenge now for us, so we have these great guidance documents in writing from DPH, from AG, and from the ABCC. That has helped in some cases, but we are still hearing anecdotal reports of a plethora of these products. And we're also hearing those reports from licensed marijuana establishments, because you can go into a gas station and get a synthetic Delta 8 product, where you have to go into a marijuana establishment and pay a lot more money to get a THC Delta 9 product. So where does that leave us? It leaves us in a few different places. The big challenge here is the products that are being sold in convenience stores and gas stations that are shelf stable, the Doritos, the Skittles, the gummies. If you do not have a retail food permit requirement for those types of products, then if you had a local regulation, or if you just went in, well, you couldn't go in and enforce the food code unless you had a local regulation that would require a permit for these kinds of products. If you have that permit requirement, then you could go in and fine, saying you violated the food code. And because you issued that permit, you would also have the ability to, after notice and opportunity to be heard, you would have the ability to hold a hearing and determine whether or not to suspend that food service permit, which, as you know, is a very effective way of getting to compliance. And again, we're not about punishment, we're about compliance, and that's what we want to get to. So it works if you have the food service permit. If you don't, then you have the ability to fine if you've passed a local regulation prohibiting these, or if you're just fining on the food code violation. But again, if it's a food code violation, you have to have that permit. No, you don't have to have the permit, but you have to, you enforce with a fine, you just can't pull a permit because you don't have one to pull. So that, and if it's a flavored vaping product, then you can pull those because those are in violation of the state tobacco law. If it's alcohol, if you're finding it in liquor stores, you can report it to the ABCC, but we don't have jurisdiction over this product, over alcohol. You know, we have jurisdiction if it's in a convenience store and a seltzer, that's a violation of the food code. But if it's in a liquor store, we don't have the jurisdiction over the liquor. So that's where we are now. And so now we have some municipalities that have banned these products, even though they're already in violation of the food code. But we have had municipalities that have just outright banned these products. We have the guidance documents, which is wonderful, from DPH. And sometimes, you know, most people don't want to break the law, and I don't think retailers understand what these products are. And sometimes just giving them the guidance documents is enough to get them off the shelves, but sometimes it's not enough to get them off the shelves. And, you know, I think we really do need to try to engage with law enforcement on this. You know, there's a possibility that the Attorney General's office might do something for the online sales that are, you know, they're not checking IDs, they're saying they're highly potent. You know, it's probably a violation of the consumer protection law as well. And we might want to see if we can get any support, any lab support from the Cannabis Control Commission. So I know Senator Comerford has filed a bill, a statewide bill that's attempting to address these products by prohibiting them. The enforcement would be at the local Board of Health level. And we're working with her, both myself and Phoebe Walker are working with her staff to, you know, help sort of hone in that legislation. And I know there's other legislation that has been filed. There are other bills that have been filed, but where they're going to go in this legislative session, who knows? So that's my story. And I'm
Thank you so
sure it's
much.
still clear as mud. But we do have a draft template that would address this. I know Needham has prohibited them, Beverly has prohibited them, Ware has prohibited them, Lynn, I believe, has prohibited them. And there are other municipalities that are considering doing this as well.
Can I just ask Amy or Kelly to say what our food code, does it include shelf-stable products?
So our retail permits that we do have, so we're in convenience stores and we have retail permits for them, and shelf stable is chips, nuts, all of that.
Yeah.
Drinks, waters, all of it. So we
Yeah.
are in there doing that. My quick question is, and we did a bit of we went out to our 2022 establishments. We were looking for Delta. We also were looking for, we were looking for Kratom, but we were also looking for Delta. But I don't know if we honed in so much like on Doritos, Donna Bowman is very good, as you know, Cheryl, about recognizing Delta 8. And she hasn't found them, but I'm wondering if the ones that are really doing it are more sneaky about it. You know what I mean? Because I would say right now, out of those 22, there's none that we've identified. And prior to this, a little while back, maybe a year or two ago, there were a couple.
And I think that's probably due to Donna and Meredith and your really stellar tobacco control collaborative, because I'm sure that she sent out notices. I'm sure the collaborative sent out notices to all of the retailers with the guidance documents from DPH, and that is probably why.
Yeah, I believe we did do that. Like it was.
I'm sure you
a year ago, January, maybe. I'm not sure of the actual dates.
So that might be why you're not seeing them.
But they're sneaky sometimes. So I don't know if it's one of those.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, if you look at the Doritos, you wouldn't notice unless, I think I sent you all the PowerPoint. I circled where it says THC infused on the product. But when you look at it quickly, you're not going to know. You're not going to notice that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Janet.
For the Doritos and Skittles, these are actual, like the same manufacturer who makes Doritos and Skittles?
No.
Not.
No, they're stealing their branding. And they did this with tobacco years ago, and the companies got really angry. And it's a trademark violation.
Yeah, you would think
it is a trademark violation
now.
But no one, I mean, I guess another strategy would be to make sure Doritos knows, whoever, Frito-Lay, I think is the manufacturer of Doritos. So you would want them, and that may be a strategy as well, to just let the manufacturers of these products know that these retailers are violating their trademark.
And I feel like we did find in a store, but we're normally not in the liquor area, right? So it was a convenience store. And I don't know if it came by a complaint or actually maybe it was social media. So we did a closer look. And it was under the 3%. It was really how it was written made it really tricky. It was tonic, so it was infused, but it was under their 3%. And they said it was allowed because it was under 3. This was about a year ago. And we felt like it needed to be in the dispensary, but because it was under the 3, that it didn't. But then it goes back to, was it Delta 8? And
or
10
it was still adulterated
9.
food, right? It was still adulterated food.
Yeah. Yes. And if it is the products that the state is allowing, they can only be sold in marijuana establishments.
Yeah, and they took it off the shelf, but it was a little challenging identifying. Like we're not normally
I mean,
over,
it's
you know,
just
in the alcohol section, so it made it like, oh, okay, how are you going to do this?
well, and it becomes a resource issue for health departments.
Mhm.
Do you have the bandwidth to actually enforce? And we're running into this with tobacco products now too. There's just so many new ones coming in that say they're not flavored, but they are. And, the nicotine pouches that we talked about, they're all flavored. And our programs are just having a really hard time, which is why we would really like to see the Attorney General's office step in. But she's busy doing other things. I mean, she's got bigger fish to fry right now. I mean, it's just astounding the amount of illegal products that are targeted to youth.
I noticed in Belchertown's regulation, they say that enforcement, they do put on the police as well.
And I'm sure they spoke with the police about that. I'm sure they did because I asked them to make sure it was okay with the police to put them down. The police are aware of these. They're just not sure what to do with them either.
What's what's the direction the Comerford initiative is going in? Attorney General, Bill?
Well, and again, this is relatively new, but no, her bill is going in the direction of requiring the Cannabis Control Commission to regulate this. But the actual enforcement would be done at the local level. And she understands that that's a resource issue. And the House bill, there's a companion House bill, and the House bill they would tax the products and set up a health protection fund. And that fund would be, the way the bill is proposed now, that fund would go to local boards of health to do the enforcing and to do a lot of educating on the products. So it's a very well-intentioned bill. I just am cynical that it's going to get through the legislature in this legislative session, since hardly anything gets through.
In the towns, Cheryl, that have the local rag like Needham and Beverly, where they were finding it, I'm sure, if they chose to do that, how were they identifying it? Like, was it up by the cash registers? Was it in between? Like, I feel like when we see gummies, we definitely hone in on that. But the other products where they're sneaking them in is a little different.
Yeah, and what we would do is use some of, I mean, if you're going to regulate something and not ban it, in these cases they were, I mean, you should at least age restrict it. Although now that we know these products are illegal, I'm not sure. I mean, that was a strategy we were using before we got the guidance documents from DPH and Ag that said they're illegal. So you're not going to regulate an illegal product because it's an illegal product. If it were a legal product, then you could do something like make it be behind a counter, age restrict it, ban self-service displays, that kind of thing. But these products are illegal.
So if they are illegal, do we need a regulation about it?
You could use the food code because that's why they're illegal. You could use the food code because they're illegal. Police could use the Controlled Substance Act. But I'm sure they're concerned about what the Ninth Circuit said, in that the Ninth Circuit said they're not illegal. And we don't have a decision from the First Circuit, which is the circuit we're in. We have the we have Massachusetts saying that they violate the Controlled Substance Act, but that's just, we have them interpreting it that way. I mean, because it could still be challenged. They could still, like they did in California, they challenged the Controlled Substance Act and said, no, you've got a definition of hemp that conflicts with the Controlled Substance Act. And we think the definition of hemp supersedes that Controlled Substance Act because the definition of hemp doesn't say anything about synthetically produced products. It
So
says-
it's not been challenged in Massachusetts. There's
No.
not been. Mhm. And the towns that have regulated it or banned it, there have not been challenges to that.
No, no.
And Amy, just to confirm, you're saying that today, or as of today, it doesn't seem to be a quote unquote problem.
As of, we went out in March, so as of today or March, it doesn't appear to be, but I, listening to Cheryl and those tricky Dorito kind of thing makes me a little more suspect that could be a little out there.
Sure.
And
But
maybe not.
I'm wondering if people are, if it looks so much like a bag of Doritos or Skittles, then some people where it is available, say somewhere in Massachusetts, might be consuming them, not understanding that this is a adulterated product. And I guess I'm wondering why we might not have heard some pushback from consumers who bought something they didn't realize they were buying and didn't want that. Like, because it would have had some kind of effect on them that they weren't expecting, or their child.
We haven't heard about that.
Well, and I think a lot of these are being sold online. Which again, we don't have the ability to enforce on online sales. That's the AG's office again.
Carol, is your best advice that, I'm not sure if I've seen anything from Needham or Beverly, but that we as a Board of Health body look at those regulations?
Yeah, they came from the draft that I did, so I can send you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
can send you the draft. I'm happy to send you the draft.
Just see if that's something, I mean, we're not going to make any decision about this today, but
I mean, one of the things that, one of the benefits to having a regulation would be you can put your own violation section in. And what Needham did and what others have done is they've used the same, they've put the fine high, like they put the fine at $1,000. So you could put a high fine, not over 100, because you'd be passing it pursuant to Chapter 111, Section 31, but you could have a fine of $1,000.
I thought we can't go over 300 if otherwise it's a criminal.
You can go, you can have, you wouldn't use the civil non-ticketing disposition. You wouldn't use a civil ticket. You'd use what Meredith uses for tobacco violations. You'd issue a cease and desist order, and you can go up to 1,000.
So I just want to comment that Belchertown, because I have a hard copy of it right in front of me. Theirs is 1,000 for the first violation and 2,000 for the second and 5,000.
Yeah, they're going to have to amend that. They can't go over 1,000 because of the statute, Section 31. The reason you can for tobacco is because the DPH regulation makes you do, by law, you have to fine 1,000 for the first, 2,000 for the second, and 5,000 for the third. So they're just going to have to revisit that.
So, and they do combine in one regulation synthetically derived cannabinoids and kratom.
Yes, they do.
Regulation.
I'm glad you clarified that, Cheryl, because that number, that $1,000 was just kicking around for a while amongst us. Yeah, it seemed high. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could do just the 100, 200, 300. You know, you could do whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
totally up to the board. You have the legal authority to determine what your finding would be for a violation of the regulation.
Mhm.
And while you're here, can we get your opinion on kratom?
Needham regulates synthetic kratom, which I believe one of the previous speakers was discussing. Needham I was at a meeting when they were discussing kratom, and they were waiting. One of the board members was a scientist, and she was waiting. The FDA was studying kratom, and she wanted to wait until those studies were completed before they actually regulated it. Because you heard testimony today, anecdotal testimony and some scientific testimony, where I know there are arguments on both sides of this issue. And I know that the kratom, I was at one meeting, and it might have been Belchertown, where some representatives from the kratom industry were there and said, regulate it, but don't ban it. You know, I'm just not as familiar. I've heard anecdotal stories a lot, but I don't know the science. I know kratom can be plant derived, and I know it can be created synthetically. Needham took the step to just ban the synthetically created kratom. So I'm not in a position personally to give an opinion, although I would say that age restricting it and putting it behind the counter would be a really good first step.
Yeah. And just because it's outside of my world, where are people getting kratom from?
Convenience stores.
Okay,
Gas
so it
stations.
is out there. It is all over.
Oh yeah, it's out there.
Okay.
Vape shops.
So I can tell you, Cynthia, so during, you know, when we went out there to our 22 establishments, retail and tobacco, 3 had them. And 2 were 21 and over, and 1 was not. Let me just go back and look. So 21 and over, that was kept behind the counter, but not on display. So kind of hidden, but they had it and they were just capsules. Another one that was just a variety store on display behind the counter, only capsules. And then another 21 and older on display behind the counter, powder, capsules, tablets, liquid forms, and a great variety of it.
And can I get a sense of how much it costs?
It's between like $9 and $90.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Cheryl?
I guess I have one more. As I'm saying, that 2 shops that are 21 and older, they are permitted for tobacconists. So should they have kratom? It's not tobacco.
Tobacconists, I thought, can't sell anything other than.
That's what I'm just
Well,
tobacco.
they can sell tobacco and tobacco paraphernalia. I don't think they should be selling it there for the same reason. It's a violation of the food code. But what you have there is you could most likely bring them in for a hearing, send them a cease and desist order because they're well, the other thing you could use possibly is the nuisance statute. They're selling something that may cause injury or sickness to a person. So you could, and that you wouldn't have to pass a regulation. You could just bring them in on a cease and desist order. And if they're in adult only stores, then and they have to have a tobacco sales permit, you could leverage that permit.
Cheryl, are you talking at this point about synthetic cannabinoids, or are you still talking about kratom?
I was talking about kratom.
Okay.
But the same thing would be true for Delta 8 or Delta 10. You could use the nuisance statute in any of these stores and bring them in and tell them to cease and desist
But
and
not,
fine them. But
but
in
not,
the adult-only retail tobacco stores, you would also have that ability, the permit suspension ability.
but food code only if it like was in liquid form, right? Like consumable, not capsules, not
Right, right.
tablets, powder, that, but if it was drinkable, food code in that 21 and over.
Mhm.
So Amy, I have a grid that I think you sent me from a 2023 survey that you all did. And there was 6 stores listed for Kratom.
Yeah, so that was, if it was 2023, that was a little while ago.
Okay.
This
So
was
you have
just
less.
in March.
Yeah, good.
Okay. Meredith is not here tonight, but I know that her opinion is that for kratom, at a minimum, it should be age restricted and no cell service behind the counter. That was her recommendation to, at a minimum, to do that. Any other questions for Cheryl?
I just want to say that I would encourage us to think about going in that direction. So I don't know what the next steps might be with that. So
I'm just wondering, just getting back a little bit to the synthetic deltoid stuff. I mean, it does sound like it would be best if this was handled at the state level. And I'm wondering if we should be thinking about, kind of a letter from us to, is it the Attorney General or whoever is looking at, or maybe to Joe Comerford or something that's kind of, because it is clear as mud, and it just sounds like something that really needs to happen, to be further figured out at the state level.
It took me months to try to figure this out, but everyone was asking, so I did it. And again, it's still very complicated.
Right.
So if our retailers, if we inspect retailers that have shelf-stable food, if they are establishments that we review, then we can take those off the shelf as a violation of the food code. Yes?
Yes, the only question I have is I don't know. Yes, they're a violation. They are in violation of the food code. No, they're they're in violation of the food code. Yes, but do you require a local permit for them? And I
Amy,
don't know the answer.
A permit
I mean,
for,
that's something that we could
A food
easily
permit. Do you
do.
require a food service permit for those
we
products?
do.
Perfect. Then
Yeah, for
yes,
retail, all
Yes.
retails.
all retail sale of food. So
Mhm.
yes, then you can, yes. You could pull their permit if they're selling them. After you,
So,
no, obviously after a hearing.
mhm. Okay, so that
So without a separate
solves.
regulation,
Correct. You could do that right now. You could enforce the food code against them.
So Amy, in the places that you found the Delta 8 and the Delta 10, were those tobacco
None.
shops or were those none?
None,
Didn't find
none.
it.
again, after today, like
Mm-hmm.
Donna has a great eye for these things and she, later eyes on it in March. Just wondering if they're being tricky about it. That would be the only thing, something that we missed, but, I would have to think they'd be smart enough to keep it separate, but not and over by all the chips and the Lays and the Doritos and all that, but on a separate display, so those mistakes aren't made, but, and then that would jump out at us a little bit more. It's just one more higher level when we're back in these stores again, just to, I've written down the names of a few, definitely to talk to Donna about, but they're not out there that we can see.
That's great. I seem to recall that we sent a letter a few years ago about these products and asking
I'm
people to
sure you
take them
did.
off the shelves. Yeah.
I think it's when the MDR guidance and the DPH guidance came out.
Right.
And prior to that, there were a few out there.
So going back to Kratom, if we were to limit by age, put them behind the counter, not have self-service, would that look a lot like the tobacco regs?
Yeah.
The language.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a format for us for that?
Yes.
For Kratom in particular?
Yes. Yes.
Great.
I think I was asked to explore some background and context for Kratom.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to access the Kratom folder. Thank you for trying, Scott, but I just wasn't able. So I don't know what you already have gotten, but I'm happy to present a little bit of that if you're interested.
Are you prepared to do that tonight?
Sure.
Oh, that would be awesome. I'm gonna let Cheryl go if she wants to leave. Does anybody have any other questions for Cheryl? That was really, really helpful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime, you know that.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Letting the public in here. Okay. Let's do, does anyone want to say anything else about the Delta 8, Delta 10? Sounds like we don't have that problem here, and we can use the food code for shelf-stable products. So sounds like for the moment that's under control. Anybody have any other points of discussion about that? Okay, let's go move on to Kratom, which we've talked a little bit about. Suzanne, do you have more information you'd like to share?
I have some. I don't want to take a lot of time, but obviously from the public comments for the past several meetings that we've had, there are people with very intense feelings about the value of Kratom in their lives. And there are just two perspectives on it. It's the perspective of those folks, and there's a perspective of, I would say, the medical side, where there's a belief that this needs to be regulated, and the purity and concentration needs to be made well known. And unfortunately, the organizations that you would hope would do something to help that, bridge that gap, have not acted at the federal level. And so just Vitragina is derived from a tree that usually grows in Southeast Asia. And the leaf is available. Some people make teas out of those. And there are companies, in fact, a $1 billion industry that processes Kratom. And it oftentimes concentrates it, as one of our speakers said today. I heard the same number, that you can get Kratom that is 40 times what you would find if you had the leaf. And the effects of this, as we've heard from a lot of folks who use this substance, at lower doses, it has some stimulant effects. and at higher doses, it has some opioid-like effects. And let me get back to this is a substance that is the action so far has been at the state level. There are 44 states in which kratom is legal, and Massachusetts is one of those states. There was legislation proposed in the last legislative session that did not make it out of committee, that wanted to focus on the purity of the product, having absence of contaminants and dangerous substances, and also wanted to restrict the age of use to over 21 and older. The new legislature that just ended their first session also has a regulation that has been proposed. The current legislation, proposed legislation, is to ban kratom in Massachusetts, and that has been referred to the Joint Committee on the Judiciary. So that's where it sits. That's the situation in Massachusetts. The health effects, we've heard many of the positive health effects that people have advocated for. Anxiety, depression, pain. These are areas where medicine doesn't have good answers. These are prominent issues with a lot of suffering caused people, and as we've heard, people get into trouble with the medications that are prescribed oftentimes, and we don't have good alternatives. There's Tylenol and Advil and those types of medications. Then there's some ones in the middle, like tramadol, and then you go right to full agonist opioids. It's very problematic, and people are suffering. So people have found this other substance that they get relief from. It's estimated that 2 million people in the United States used kratom in 2022. That's ages 12 and up. There have been some people who've done some research into the deaths that are caused by kratom, which is the major issue that we, of course, want to avoid. A lot of this information comes from a Washington Post article that was from 2024 that used CDC data. And kratom was found to be a contributing cause in over 4,000 deaths from 2022 to 2024. That is 1.4% of overdose deaths over that period of time. In contrast, Benadryl and antihistamines were found to be a contributing factor to 3.6% of overdose deaths. I tell you that only to put this in a context of the contribution to deaths and serious health effects and comparison to things that are already on the market. CDC did a review from 30 state death certificates, and they found that they could find only 56 deaths that were solely due to kratom in the year that they looked, in 2022. And in Michigan, 73% of overdose fatalities in which kratom was found were found to have other substances. So the perception is that the deaths that have been reported are often due to contaminants that have been found. So what's been the government response? In 2016, the Drug Enforcement Agency announced plans to classify kratom as a controlled substance. And the plans were withdrawn due to the public response. So that's one agency.
2016, you said?
2016. And the FDA notes that kratom is an unapproved drug or supplement depending on the marketing. So medicine, the regulatory agencies are looking at this as a medication. People who want access to the drug would like to see this treated the same as other supplements, because it comes from, it's a tree, you know, it originates from a tree. Interestingly, the FDA was asked to present documents and have expert witnesses testify and participate in a case in San Diego where someone had been arrested for importing kratom, which imports can be seized by the FDA. And the FDA declined to prepare documents and submit them or send an expert. And this harkens back to what we heard from something that Cheryl said, that the reason given to the U.S. Attorney's Office was that the FDA had not yet made a determination as to whether kratom is dangerous. And to my knowledge, there has been no change in that policy. On the medical side, the American Medical Association has passed a resolution in 2023 asking for the regulation of kratom and banning over-the-counter sales. But that really puts people in a bind, because that means that they could only get it from a prescribing physician. And no prescribing physician is going to be doing that. So that essentially eliminates the access. The American Society for Addiction Medicine is concerned about side effects, not just deaths. There are cardiac effects, there is liver toxicity, and there's interaction with other medications and other substances that people are taking. It's as difficult and complicated as our discussions have been about tobacco and synthetic drug cannabinoids and all of the others that we have taken on one at a time. It seems to me that the regulatory responsibility lies with federal agencies for whom that is their responsibility, but they have failed to act. And so some states have taken on the responsibility. I believe it's 6 states, six states in which kratom is illegal, but 44 states in which it's legal. And I said Massachusetts is one of those.
Quick question, Suzanne.
Yeah, sure.
Is it, you're saying that it's legal in those 44 states because it has not been banned? It's not that they stated outright that it's legal. It just hasn't been banned.
There are actually 12 states in which possession, sale, manufacture of kratom products is regulated. And that has been achieved due to what's called the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, which was developed in partnership with the advocacy organization, the American Kratom Association. A number of people have spoken about that organization. So there has been a partnership at the state level. Due to the failure of action at the federal level, there's been partnership in some states to come up with some regulatory framework. I will say the American Kratom Association is very much pro a standardized assessment of dose and concentration and contaminants in particular. I mean, folks that belong to that association are the ones that are most victimized by these contaminants and the high concentrations that are available. So there's interest in that ground, and some states have taken it on, but Massachusetts has not yet. I think that there's probably some overall agreement about an age limit for sales. And there is also a sort of a what is it called? The American Kratom Association has a seal of approval that they have, they give to certain manufacturers who have produced this product and market it in ways that they find meets their standards. And that, once again, to demonstrate that the association is very interested in making sure that the people that take this substance are not harmed by doses too high, causing liver toxicity and heart toxicity, and most certainly the contaminants. That's an unofficial designation by the association itself, but they're moving and trying to help in this complete void by the regulators. That's about all I was going to say.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. Do you know if the American Kratom Association has done independent testing of those products that it approves?
I don't want to speak to that because I don't know the details of that. I mean, they have their process, their seal of approval, and I'm not party to that. I don't know the science behind what they're doing, but they're trying. We don't need, we have heard so much about how important this substance is to some people. I think this puts it in a different category. Other than, I think THC is the only thing that I can think of that people were advocating very strongly about health benefits. And the state dealt with that by the Cannabis Commission and all the regulations that go along with that. So that was a substance people strongly believe had health benefits. This is another substance that's in that category, unlike the ones that are in Doritos, the substances in Doritos and all that obviously are trying to appeal to young people and get people high.
Comments, questions? Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne. That's great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I guess my question is, besides an age, minimum age, no cell service, have it where it's not on display, is there enough known or enough recommendations by the American Kratom Association to go further than that? I mean, do they have enough science to say you may not, you know, don't sell the what's that 7-OH products?
Right.
Or the synthetics? Can they differentiate synthetics from natural products?
I can't attest to what they do and the science of what they do. The people that are supposed to assess the science have not, and sort of declined to participate in that, which I think is very frustrating to the advocates. They would like to see something that is so important to their lives regulated as a supplement, not as a medication, because it's pretty well thought that the Drug Enforcement Agency will list this as a Schedule I controlled substance, which is the category of substances that have no known medical value, and so really can't be prescribed. That's what the belief is if the DEA pursues this.
But the FDA doesn't oversee supplements, is that correct? Or do they?
The FDA considers kratom an unapproved drug or a supplement, depending on its marketing. The supplement area is very tricky. It was removed from FDA authority, but I think there have been discussions. That's the category that the American Kratom Association would like this assessed under. They believe it belongs in that category. That's the origin of it, along with all the other supplements that are on the market. I just can't answer that, Joanne. I don't know.
Anybody else?
Well, I'm just wondering, I know some of the people who came to public comment are extremely involved in it. I don't know, I think Laura Romney may be one of them, who have offered to come and talk to the board in more of a back and forth. Is that something that we would want to consider? Is that okay protocol to do?
We can invite whoever we want.
Right. I would be in favor of someone talking about the science of this and talking about the role of the American Kratom Association in assessing quality and concentration, if that's an area that they have delved into. I think we've heard a lot of testimonials, and that has left a vivid impression in me, at least.
Right, and I think one or more people who came, you know, are involved with the American Kratom Association on that level, and
right.
would speak on behalf of them.
I wouldn't be opposed to hearing what they have to say about the science and testing and their seal of approval.
Did Cheryl mention if there's anybody else in Massachusetts doing regulations on this?
I think so. Well, Belchertown banned it. Did she not say that someone imposed an age limit? I can't remember now. I got it all.
Yeah,
we could also maybe Needham. I think she mentioned two other communities. I think she said a lot.
From what some representatives have said, I don't think there's a lot of strong opposition to an age limit and not having the substance available to kids.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just looking at my notes. Needham regulates synthetic kratom. I don't know if it bans or regulates synthetic.
That's
kratom.
right. Yeah.
So I'm very interested in that. I mean, from testimony that we heard earlier, is that seems to be the synthetic seems to be the place where the higher doses are used.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. They are concentrating the natural substance as well.
Oh, really?
The leaf, yeah.
So
it's not just synthetics.
So it sounds like we want to hear more from the American Kratom Association, or people knowledgeable about the science of kratom and about dosing and contaminants. And if we were to regulate it but not ban it, what other things besides age control and access that we could do to make it safer. So for the folks who are listening, if you want to send a letter to the Department of Health addressed to Meredith O'Leary, you can send her your association with the Kratom Association or your credentials, because we'd be looking for someone who has knowledge about the science rather than a personal testimony. So we could look into that. I don't know, Scott, would you have the bandwidth to look into the American Kratom Association and see if they have people who would be willing to come to a meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked with Laura Romney through email, just sending information and everything as well. So yeah, I'm sure I can find somebody for that.
When I think about going beyond age limit and behind the counter, I start thinking about how could we possibly enforce something. We can't test for contaminants. We can't test for concentration. things can be labeled whatever they want to be labeled, and we have no way of enforcing that.
Yeah.
I guess that's why it brings up the question to me that if the American Kratom Association already has approved certain products, that if we can hear about the science behind that, that might be a way that we could do it, is using their science or their approval process.
I believe there are people who are interested in weighing in. Unfortunately, we can't entertain folks at this point in our meeting.
I think they're applauding your comments.
Okay.
So is everyone comfortable that we're going to move forward with learning more about kratom, dosing, toxicity, the American Kratom Association, and I'm not even sure what the Kratom Consumer Protection Act is, but to learn more about what that is and who uses that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a great plan.
Great. Any other comments about that? Are we all sort of in agreement? Do we want to take a straw poll? Suzanne said yes. Cynthia?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Comfortable with that as a direction? Great. Joanne, yes. Thank you. Okay, I think we'll move on. Thank you everyone who from the public who came and spoke. We appreciate your testimony. We're going to move on to our next subject, which is just an update on our nitrous oxide policy. I think we all got a copy of the letter that was sent out. Any questions about that?
Wait,
Scott, do you have anything, any update, anything, feedback, anything?
No, we sent the letter out on Monday. It's posted up on our website under our regulations. It's also posted under there as well. And we sent out a press release and everything as well.
And I think we picked a start date. Did we pick what, June 15th?
Yes, it was June 15th.
Okay. I happened to look at the one of the smoke shops on Main Street that I know had them in the window previously, and I did not see them in the window as of last week. So things are moving. I just want to mention that we had a presentation about PFAS last time. It did not get onto our current agenda, but I thought we would bring it up as old business next time.
Perhaps we can talk. We could talk about the move at the federal level to de-emphasize PFAS and allow higher concentrations in the water.
Interesting. When our president has also said he wants to protect our water, right? The air we breathe and the water we drink. Janet, you had something you wanted to bring up and follow up?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to kind of wrap up for now, at least, the executive policy that the mayor had or letter that she had sent on access to reproductive and gender affirming health care that was to go to city employees. And at our last meeting, Meredith had said, we were just talking about, do we know that it went to current employees? What happens as new employees come into the city? How do we know that they're gonna know about this policy or this executive order? And Meredith had said that she was going to be meeting with the mayor the very next day. So I checked in with her this week, and she said that the mayor did agree to having this be part of human resources staff orientation for new city employees, and also to ensure that it got sent out, that information was sent out to current employees. So that's where it stands right now. And based on the conversation that Joanne and I had with city council, that's kind of what we can do at this point. I still want to see what might come from the state, who's looking at just kind of making sure that it's, that people who are impacted by, because it's also a policy at, policy is the wrong word, but at, at the state level, the governor has said that we are going to protect people who are in the state for gender affirming or reproductive health care, and protect the providers who provide that kind of care, that this is good health care. And so I think there are things that the state is thinking about doing to kind of put some rigor behind that. But again, like everything else going on, there's so much going on that I haven't heard that anything more has happened, but I will bring it back up when I do hear that there might be other ways of just strengthening this mandate across the state.
Thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments?
I just want to jump back in on the nitrous oxide. I think the inspectors in Meredith can talk about like education again, with the establishments that we do find selling it, and maybe youth checks for the ones that are allowed to sell it. I think we need to put something in place for that.
So how would that happen?
Well, so who can sell it, right? The baker's pen.
Yeah, I think it is only Baker's pen.
Right. And we do inspect them anyways. So we are in there. So it's okay for them to have them. I think we also inspect the other places that did have them. So if we find them there, it's an education process, right? Just like our other tobacco. So it'll probably align with that, but just to get something in place down on paper.
Great.
And the youth checks are a little different. So we do it for tobacco, but this would be new. So what does that look like in protocol for the kiddos doing it?
They're not used to having that type of youth purchase attempt. It's not part of their world. So I think up front it would have to be a lot more education.
Yeah, 100%.
Punitive.
And from my conversation with them, they're very interested in complying, and they're trying to figure out a way to do it, have that letter, Scotch tape to the area where they keep it back in the back closet. There's, they have a bunch of employees, so they'd have to educate everyone. Yep. Okay. Great. Let's just see where we are. I think that's all that was on our agenda. Let me check.
Were we going to do takeaways?
Yeah, the takeaways from
yes. Takeaways from the conference.
Right up front, I need to thank Cynthia for giving me a big push to go to the last session. I didn't want to go, and I'm so glad you gave me that push, because I wouldn't have done it on my own, and it was extremely worthwhile. I wish I could have thanked Cheryl while she was on the call. Very well done, right up our alley in so many ways, and it was a good use of a Saturday.
Thanks for going. I know that was a hike for you too, so thanks. Yeah.
I could have gone to the one in Northampton, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, so you went to the later one, and where was that?
I went to Marlboro.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
was
told
where
him
I went the first
I mean,
time.
it was good to get those updates, I mean, the world has changed, so, but yeah, thanks.
I mean, I don't really think we need to spend a lot of time. And I started reviewing the slides. I was overwhelmed even reviewing it at all of the information that was portrayed. But one thing that stuck with me is an emphasis on how the minutes need to be done and how the agenda needs to be done. And we can't say old business and new business. Kelly, that's your area. I hope that you're talking with Meredith about that, because that's a change and you didn't have advantage of going to the presentation.
I
will
don't remember
talk to
seeing
her
that.
about that.
Yeah,
I
I
have it
don't
written
remember seeing
down.
that.
Agenda, old topics, new topics, must list speakers, new business, old business, director's report no longer appropriate. Those
Do
are-
we see that?
I don't
I don't
remember
remember.
I
that.
don't remember that.
Okay,
I don't
well,
remember either.
maybe you don't remember that?
No.
Okay, well, maybe it was only in Marlboro. Special presentation for Marlboro.
Which part, we got the slides in
Yeah.
groups.
I quickly tried to find it and I couldn't. So
You should just run that by Cheryl to make sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Because that's good information. I know when I look at all the other city minutes, they really, it's a very different road. And I
Mhm.
think the more we can put in for our public, the better off we are all. So.
Agreed.
I thought it was interesting that they were talking about what's considered a meeting for open meeting law, that if more than two of us go to a city council meeting, that's not considered a meeting for us, for our open meeting law. In other words, we can talk about business with city council and that's not a violation.
Because we're already at an open meeting.
Well, but yeah, I guess, but
I would be interested in possibly getting .gov emails for our Board of Health business. It was highly recommended that we do that because our emails are subject to, I forget the word, but
yep.
if somebody wants to,
information, release of
Right.
information, yeah.
And we've had that happen a few times.
Yes, we already had that happen. Scott, can you put that on your list for things to ask Meredith? I know Meredith asked for us a few years ago, asked the city, and the city said no, and I can't tell you why.
I will put it on my list, and I can talk to Meredith about it. I can talk to our health tech manager about it as well, and see if we can get that done for you.
If it was to be done, I think it would be great if we all just started using it at the exact same time so that from that point forward, we'd know that.
It's in the city's best interest that we adhere to these regulations.
There's a different IT now, so maybe it'll be addressed differently. I think at the time limited, Google accounts and all that kind of stuff. And our other IT, Melissa on the other end, which Scott can talk to, maybe it's a email that it's like for our inspectors at northamptonma.gov, and then they use it and it's for the public and it is one, and then as you all change, if you come and go, win the lottery or move to Portugal or those things, then it's still the same email. So maybe something like that.
The other option is if for some reason we can't get a city address, is that we each open new Google addresses that's specifically used for Board of Health, your name, Board of Health, whatever, at Gmail, whatever. But we'll try to get city address first.
I like Janet's idea that we all make the change at the same time.
But I don't understand, Amy, what you're saying about getting one, because don't we all need separate emails?
Maybe for open meeting laws, that I'm not sure of, but for correspondence from the public.
I guess I wasn't looking at it just for correspondence from the public. If
Okay.
there are times that, I'm very careful that I only email one person about, like Joanne. Often it will be an email to Meredith and I CC Joanne or vice versa. But I thought is subject to, information stuff. So
yeah, it is. You're right. You're right, Janet.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see if we can get that address. That's a good point. Um, calendar. Our next meeting would be, and then we'll do minutes. Our next meeting would be on June 19th, but that is a city holiday. That is Juneteenth. Do we want to pick another date in June, or do we want to just sort of start looking at maybe 2 dates for the next 3 months? We don't usually have a date in August. We usually sort of have one between July and August. We want to try to pick 2 Thursdays over the next 3 months, that kind of thing. Should I do a
unless we have a
survey?
compelling reason, can we just have a July meeting? August is generally, it's difficult to get everyone's schedule coordinated over the summer. If we have business that needs our attention in a more urgent manner, I think we can arrange for another meeting. But I think one in July could be sufficient.
So July, if we're on our current schedule, would be July 17th. How does that sound to everyone?
I'll be on vacation.
Here we go. Is there another July date, Thursday, that we can pick?
I know in the past Meredith has not liked to change which Thursday it is because it's what is on the website and public.
Right. But in the summer, she's okay if we sort of pick one that everyone can go to for July and August. She's okay with that. Do we want to try to work on that now? Let me think.
I mean, it's tricky getting a quorum if we already know one person's not going to be there. If something should come up, then we don't have a quorum for another person.
Well, let's see if we can get everyone on the same date. We can't also guarantee that Meredith is available. July 24th is not a great date for me. July 31st, I'm definitely away. How about earlier, July 10th? I'm away but willing.
It works for me.
Works for me.
You said you're away on July 10th?
I am away, but
willing.
no, it doesn't. Well, I changed my mind. I'm not willing. No, I'm not away. Wait a second. I'm not away. The 10th is okay for me. Janet?
Yep, it's okay for me.
So everyone can do July 10th, and then we can ask Meredith about that. And we will cancel the June meeting because it's Juneteenth. Okay, I think July 10th. That's great. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Let me bring them up. Did everyone get them?
Yeah.
Yes.
I just have one area, one specific spot where something's missing to me, which is the piece about the lighting, the safe lighting educational procedure. It's Roman numeral 4.
Let's see. Okay.
It says, I mean, this is really being picky, but safe lighting educational brochure. It just says people's names, educational brochure, and how to comply with. That doesn't seem to follow the usual format of what we have. Down.
You want to just turn that into a sentence?
Yes, please. Thank you. That was what I meant to say.
How is that? Presented an educational brochure.
Perfect.
That's great.
Any other comments about the minutes? Thank you, Kelly. They look great.
Move to approve the minutes with amendments.
Second.
Minutes from April 17th. Any other discussion? All in favor, Cynthia?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Joanne? Yes. Okay, approved. We have our next meeting tentatively scheduled for July 10th. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn?
We might have, I might not want to lose the nicotine-free generation discussion.
Okay, for next time?
Been looming.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
Cynthia, it looks like you're holding a cigarette in your hand.
Thank you, Suzanne.
You're welcome.
I see you're holding your drink. So.
Caught my eye. Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I
Move to
make a
adjourn.
motion. Oh, I second it.
I didn't hear the motion.
Move to adjourn.
Seconded by Janet. Any discussion, questions? All in favor? Suzanne?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Joanne? Yes. Thank you, everyone. And Scott, you and I can talk about what we come up with for our for Kratom and our July 10th meeting.
Sounds great.
Great.
Have a great June.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Bye, Amy. Bye, Kelly. Thank you.
Bye.